There's this moment that hits you like a freight train. You're standing in line at Starbucks, and the barista starts talking to the customer ahead of you. Suddenly, your brain screams that you've witnessed this exact conversation before. Same words, same tone, same everything. But you've never been to this Starbucks in your life. Scientists have a fancy term for it: déjà vu. But what if I told you that what you're experiencing isn't some weird brain glitch? What if it's actually evidence of something far more mind-bending happening to your consciousness right now? Here's the thing that's going to mess with your head. Cutting-edge physics has discovered that reality doesn't work the way we thought. When quantum particles face a choice between two possibilities, something incredible happens. They don't pick one or the other. They take both paths simultaneously. Think about that for a second. Every time you stood at a crossroads in your life, whether to text that person back, take that job, move to that city, the universe didn't wait for your decision. It split. One reality where you said yes, another where you said no. Both versions playing out in real time. Hugh Everett cracked this code back in the 1950s with his many worlds theory. It's not science fiction anymore. Top physicists like Sean Carroll are backing this with hard data. We're living in what's essentially an infinite multiverse, where every possible version of your life is happening right now. Ever wonder why you keep attracting the same types of people? Why you feel stuck in patterns that seem impossible to break? Why sometimes you swear you know exactly how a situation will play out before it happens? Maybe your consciousness isn't trapped in just one timeline. Maybe you're picking up signals from all the other versions of yourself living parallel lives. And maybe, just maybe, you can learn to tune into the frequencies where your best possible life is already unfolding. Subscribe and hit that notification bell, because YouTube's algorithm needs to know that content like this should reach people who are ready to question everything they thought they knew about reality. Here's something that's going to blow your mind. You know that feeling when you walk into a restaurant and instantly know you've been there before, even though you just moved to town last week? Your brain starts firing off alarm bells, insisting this is familiar territory. But your logical mind knows for a fact you've never set foot in this place. Most people brush this off as some weird neurological hiccup. What if it's actually your consciousness picking up signals from a parallel version of yourself who's been a regular at that same restaurant for years? The foundation for this mind-bending possibility comes from one of the most important experiments in the history of science. When researchers fire individual photons through two slits in a barrier, something impossible happens. Each single photon somehow goes through both slits simultaneously, creating an interference pattern that should only be possible if multiple particles were involved. But here's where it gets really wild. The moment scientists try to observe which slit the photon actually goes through, it chooses one path and the interference pattern disappears. It's as if the act of observation forces reality to make a decision it was previously avoiding. This is the famous double-slit experiment, and it's been replicated thousands of times with the same bizarre results. What it tells us is that at the quantum level, particles exist in what physicists call superposition, multiple states simultaneously, until something forces them to collapse into a single state. Now imagine applying this principle to your entire life. Every moment you face a choice. Quantum mechanics suggests that instead of reality choosing one outcome, it splits. One timeline where you order coffee, another where you order tea. One reality where you swipe right, another where you swipe left. All existing simultaneously until what exactly? This is where Hugh Everett's many worlds interpretation becomes absolutely crucial. Back in the 1950s, while other physicists were struggling to explain why quantum superposition seemed to disappear at the macro level, Everett proposed something radical. Maybe it doesn't disappear. Maybe every possible outcome actually happens, but in separate, parallel universes. Think about the last major decision you made. Maybe it was taking your current job, moving to your city, or ending a relationship. In Everett's multiverse, there's a version of you who made the opposite choice. They're living a completely different life right now, but they're just as real as you are. Sean Carroll, one of today's most respected cosmologists, argues that this isn't just theoretical speculation anymore. The mathematics of quantum mechanics, when taken to their logical conclusion, practically demands that parallel realities exist. We're not talking about science fiction here. This is cutting-edge physics backed by rigorous mathematical proofs. But here's what most people miss. These parallel realities aren't floating around somewhere in distant space. According to quantum theory, they're right here, occupying the same physical location as your current reality, just vibrating at slightly different frequencies. You know how you can have multiple radio stations broadcasting through the same space, but you only hear one depending on which frequency you tune into. Your consciousness might work the same way, naturally tuned to experience one reality while remaining largely oblivious to all the others playing out simultaneously. This explains something that's puzzled neuroscientists for decades: highway hypnosis. You know that experience where you're driving a familiar route and suddenly realize you can't remember the last 10 miles. Your conscious mind just blanked out, but somehow you navigated traffic perfectly. Traditional science calls this automatic behavior, your brain running on autopilot. But what if something else is happening? What if during these moments of mental absence, your awareness is briefly tuning into the experience of a parallel version of yourself making the same drive? Nikola Tesla understood something profound about the nature of reality that we're only now beginning to rediscover. He famously said, "If you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration." Tesla realized that everything in existence, including consciousness itself, operates according to vibrational principles. Your thoughts aren't just abstract mental events. They're actual energetic frequencies that your consciousness broadcasts. Your emotions aren't just chemical reactions in your brain. They're vibrational states that determine which station of reality you're tuned into at any given moment. This is why you keep finding yourself in the same types of situations, attracting the same kinds of people, facing the same recurring challenges. It's not that you're somehow cursed or that the universe has it out for you. You're simply broadcasting a consistent vibrational frequency that naturally aligns with realities where these patterns are the norm. Carl Jung spent his entire career mapping what he called the collective unconscious, universal patterns that seem to repeat across all human experience. He identified these recurring themes as archetypes, fundamental structures that shape how consciousness organizes itself into experience. Jung was onto something enormous, even though he didn't have access to quantum physics. What if these archetypes are actually the vibrational templates that determine how consciousness splits into parallel realities? Each combination of archetypal energies creates a different frequency band where specific types of experiences naturally occur. The lover archetype vibrates at frequencies where romantic connections and passionate experiences are common. The warrior archetype resonates with realities involving challenge, conflict, and conquest. The sage frequency aligns with realities focused on wisdom, teaching, and spiritual growth. Most people unconsciously lock into a limited combination of archetypal frequencies early in life, and then spend decades experiencing variations on the same basic themes. But here's the breakthrough. Once you understand how this system works, you can consciously choose which frequencies to embody. Sometimes, though, you get glimpses of other frequency bands. Ever have a dream so vivid and detailed that you woke up disoriented, genuinely unsure which reality was real for a few moments? Dreams might not be random neural firing after all. They could be your consciousness temporarily tuning into parallel versions of your life. That's why certain dreams carry that unmistakable quality of truth. They feel more real than regular imagination because they are real experiences, just not from your current timeline. When you dream about living in a different city, having a different career, or being in a relationship with someone you've never met, you might be accessing the memories of parallel selves. This phenomenon becomes even more intriguing when you consider the role of what neuroscientists call the default mode network, the brain activity that occurs when you're not focused on anything specific. During these states of relaxed awareness, your consciousness becomes more receptive to signals from outside your normal frequency range. Meditation, creative flow states, that drowsy period just before sleep, these are all times when the barriers between parallel realities become more permeable. It's during these moments that breakthrough insights often occur, as if information is flowing in from sources your logical mind can't identify. But here's where the science gets really revolutionary. You're not just a passive observer of these parallel realities. Quantum mechanics proves that observation itself affects reality at the most fundamental level. Every time you consciously observe your own thoughts, emotions, and behaviors, you're actively influencing which version of reality you experience. This is what physicists call the observer effect, and it's been demonstrated in countless laboratory experiments. The simple act of conscious observation literally changes the behavior of quantum systems. Applied to your life, this means that the more consciously you observe your own patterns, the more power you have to shift which parallel reality you're experiencing. Most people live in what I call unconscious observation mode. They react automatically to life circumstances without realizing they're constantly choosing which version of reality to tune into. When someone cuts them off in traffic and they immediately fly into road rage, they're unconsciously selecting a reality frequency where conflict and hostility are normal. When they receive an opportunity and their first thought is, "This is too good to be true," they're tuning into a reality where limitation and disappointment are standard. These aren't conscious choices. They're automatic responses based on ingrained vibrational patterns. But conscious observation changes everything. When you can pause in the moment between stimulus and response, when you can watch your own reactions without immediately identifying with them, you create space for different possibilities to emerge. You become what quantum physicists call a conscious observer, capable of influencing which reality you collapse into experience. Neville Goddard, decades before quantum physics confirmed his insights, understood that imagination isn't fantasy. It's a technology for navigating between parallel realities. When you vividly imagine yourself in a desired situation, you're not creating something from nothing. You're tuning your consciousness to the frequency of a parallel reality where that situation already exists. The key insight Goddard taught is that you can't just visualize the end result and expect magic to happen. You have to embody the vibrational state of the person who would naturally experience that result. If you want financial abundance, you need to cultivate the consciousness of someone who has a healthy, confident relationship with money. If you want loving relationships, you need to develop the inner frequency of someone who naturally attracts and maintains healthy connections. This is where most manifestation attempts fail. People try to think their way into different outcomes while maintaining the same emotional frequency that created their current reality. But the multiverse doesn't respond to thoughts. It responds to vibrational state. Your emotions are the tuning mechanism that determines which parallel reality you experience. The ancient Hermetic principle, as above, so below, takes on new meaning in this context. Your inner vibrational state is the above that determines your outer experiential reality, the below. Change the frequency, change the reality. It's that simple and that profound. But here's something that will completely reframe how you think about personal growth. In the quantum multiverse, every version of yourself you could possibly want to become already exists. There's a parallel reality where you're already living with confidence, abundance, health, meaningful relationships, whatever you're currently working toward. The question isn't, how do I become that person? The question is, how do I tune into the frequency where that version of me is already living that reality? This is where the pineal gland becomes incredibly important. Ancient traditions called it the third eye, the organ of spiritual perception. Modern science has discovered that the pineal contains calcite crystals, the same mineral formations that allow certain marine animals to navigate using magnetic fields. What if the pineal gland is literally a biological antenna, capable of receiving signals from parallel versions of yourself? What if those moments of sudden insight, creative breakthrough, or inexplicable knowing are actually information transfers from more developed versions of your consciousness? Research has shown that the pineal produces DMT, often called the spirit molecule, because of its ability to induce experiences of alternate realities. Maybe these aren't hallucinations at all. Maybe they're glimpses into the parallel dimensions where other versions of yourself are having different experiences. You don't need psychedelics to access this, though. Deep meditation, contemplative prayer, even those moments of quiet reflection before sleep can open these channels. The key is learning to quiet the constant chatter of your everyday mind and tune into subtler frequencies of consciousness. Think about the last time you had a major breakthrough or insight. Chances are it didn't come while you were trying to figure something out logically. It probably came during a moment of relaxed awareness, in the shower, on a walk, just as you were falling asleep. These are the moments when your consciousness is most receptive to information from parallel realities. The Stoic philosophers, particularly Marcus Aurelius and Epictetus, developed practices that are remarkably similar to what quantum consciousness research suggests. They understood that while you can't control external circumstances, you have complete sovereignty over your internal responses. In quantum terms, you can't control which situations appear in your reality, but you can choose which frequency of consciousness you maintain in response to those situations. When you maintain equanimity in the face of challenges, you are tuning into frequencies where you've already developed wisdom and resilience. When you respond with compassion instead of judgment, you're accessing parallel versions of yourself who have evolved beyond reactive patterns. This is why certain people seem to effortlessly attract opportunities, relationships, and experiences that others struggle to create. They're not necessarily better people. They're just naturally tuned into higher frequency versions of themselves. And the beautiful thing is, this tuning is a learnable skill. Tesla's insights about frequency and vibration reveal that consciousness operates like a radio transmitter. You are constantly broadcasting your inner state, and the multiverse responds by delivering experiences that match your signal. Change your frequency, and you automatically begin attracting elements from parallel realities where that frequency is natural. But here's the crucial point. Authenticity matters more than technique. You can't fake your way into higher frequencies. The quantum field responds to genuine vibrational states, not mental performances. This is why positive thinking alone rarely creates lasting change. It's often just a mental overlay on unchanged emotional patterns. Real transformation happens when you do the inner work to genuinely shift your relationship with yourself, with others, and with life itself. When self-love becomes authentic rather than forced, when confidence grows from actual self-knowledge rather than affirmations, when abundance feels natural because you've healed your relationship with worthiness. The multiverse is like an infinite cosmic library containing every possible version of your life story. Your consciousness is the library card that determines which books you can access. Develop your consciousness, and you gain access to increasingly extraordinary versions of your own existence. Some spiritual traditions talk about ascending to higher dimensions, but quantum physics suggests something different. You're not going anywhere. You're tuning into versions of reality that already exist in the same space. It's more like upgrading your consciousness's operating system to run more sophisticated reality programs. The most profound realization is this: every limitation you experience, every pattern you feel stuck in, every challenge you face exists only in the particular frequency band you're currently tuned into. Shift your frequency consciously and consistently, and you automatically begin experiencing parallel realities where those limitations simply don't exist. Your parallel selves aren't separate from you. They're different expressions of the same infinite consciousness, exploring every possible variation of experience. When you develop wisdom in one reality, it becomes available to all versions of yourself. When you heal a pattern in one timeline, you make that healing accessible across all dimensions of your existence. This is why the inner work you do matters on a cosmic scale. Every moment of consciousness you develop, every pattern you transform, every frequency you learn to embody contributes to the evolution of your entire multidimensional existence. The question that will determine your experience from this moment forward is simple. Which version of yourself do you choose to tune into? Because right now, as you're reading these words, infinite versions of your life are unfolding simultaneously. Your consciousness is the remote control that determines which reality you experience as real. But here's where things get really interesting. Once you start consciously navigating between these parallel realities, the universe begins responding in ways that'll make your head spin. Patterns start emerging that can't be explained by coincidence. Numbers showing up everywhere, on license plates, receipts, clocks, all carrying the same sequence. People appearing in your life at exactly the moment you need them most, as if they were sent by some cosmic algorithm. Your dreams become downloads of information that shouldn't exist. You wake up with solutions to problems you've been wrestling with for months, or with knowledge about subjects you never studied. It's like having a direct line to versions of yourself who already figured it out. Think about what this really means. You're never actually alone in this journey. Right now, there are infinite versions of you exploring every possible path, making every conceivable choice, living every potential outcome, and they're all connected to you through the quantum field of consciousness. Every breakthrough one version achieves makes that same breakthrough available to all the others. Every limitation one version transcends creates a pathway for the rest. You're not just working on your own growth, you're contributing to the evolution of your entire multidimensional existence. That's exactly why understanding the specific signs and signals becomes crucial. Because when you know how to recognize the language the quantum field uses to communicate across realities, you can start receiving guidance from versions of yourself who have already walked the path you're on. The video that's coming up next will show you exactly how to decode these interdimensional messages and use them to accelerate your own evolution in ways that most people never even realize are possible. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.